Hi, this is Denise with Paper Crafty, and welcome to Trash to Treasure Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, I want to share with you ideas on how to repurpose items that most people would traditionally consider trash. These projects can be used in junk journals, planners, scrapbooks, or any multimedia project. Today, we're going to repurpose some snake skin and make some tags. Here's what you'll need: a snake or lizard skin, an assortment of tags, or you can take a manila file folder and cut it up into tags, or really any other paper you have. You might want some watercolor paper as well, a silicone mat, a brush, and some matte medium, and an assortment of inks. I use some distress inks, some distress oxides, some archival inks, StazOn, and distress sprays. You'll also need some scissors, some water in a spray bottle, and you may want some alcohol-based hand sanitizer and an assortment of punches or dies. Okay, so I don't own a snake, but a neighbor of mine posted that her snake had molted, and so she was getting rid of this snake skin. And she just posted on Buy Nothing to see if anybody, could use it for crafts. Okay, first I have to point out that this is a long snake. Holy cow, look at this. And it's almost entirely intact. That's actually pretty freaking cool. And it's very, feels like, I don't know, almost plasticky. Like a cereal bag type thing. Oh wow, look, you can even see, look at that. You can see where the eye and the mouth was. Wow, this is actually really cool. I hate to even cut it up. And I also want to point out that this doesn't have any kind of a scent or anything like that. I'm not noticing anything that might set off an allergic reaction. Okay, so I have this little tag that I'm making for a project, and it's just really simple, printable front and back. But I'm thinking I really would like to see what this skin looks like over the top, just to add some texture, and it's translucent. So I'm really curious to see what effect it would have. So I'm just going to cut some of this, and actually maybe I won't even cut it. Maybe I'll just tear it because that'll give it a more natural look. This is so cool. You can tell this was its belly, huh? Where the bigger pieces are. I just really like that it's got this interesting texture to it. All right, I'm gonna try that. Just use my Tim Holtz Media Mat here and a little bit of some matte medium, and I just keep this in this bottle because it's easy to use that way. All right, I'm just gonna take some of this matte medium and kind of paint it over this surface. Lay this right over the top. Oh, wow. Yeah, that works pretty well, actually. Oops. And just as a tip, I don't want to have to go wash my brush right away. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a baby wipe. And I just use like the Kirkland baby wipes, and I'm just gonna wrap my brush in that so that it keeps it wet. I love these Kirkland baby wipes. Okay, so you can see this totally works. Especially with these smaller pieces like this, you can see the texture, and it's translucent, so you can see the printable underneath, which is super cool. It just gives it a really cool textured effect. You can see that some of the edges are not, completely glued down. So I could add more glue or I could leave it as is. I haven't decided what I want to do with that yet. I'm looking at these bigger pieces like this, and you can see how, maybe you can see as if I put it in the right light, that, you know, it kind of bubbles up in some spots, like where, especially where it's thicker here, where it's the bigger, like the belly part. So I'm wondering if it would lay a little flatter, if I tried to rehydrate the skin a little bit first. But I'm going to try adding just a little water to the skin and see if that makes any difference at all. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it on a piece that has these big scales. Because you can see how this is really rounded here, especially. So it's hard to kind of get that to lie flat. So I'm going to just, I don't know, I don't think it's going to need much. I'm just going to add a little water to my surface and kind of yeah, it is rehydrating a little bit, so maybe that'll help. And as you add the water, it does seem to get a little bit more fragile. So just going to try to be oh yeah, you can see this is, now it's more pliable. Now the challenge is going to be to straighten this out a little bit. Or add it to this. Oh yeah, it's totally flattening out now. Oh yeah, that looks good. I like that. Okay, so now that's probably gonna take a little while longer to dry. Now that made the tag pretty wet, so I'm gonna try another piece of that. Let's see, I'm gonna try doing that again with that. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna kind of mop up the excess water there. Oh yeah, that definitely gets it much flatter. Okay, so the key is to rehydrate it a little bit before applying it, and then drying it off. So you can see the difference between that one, it's not quite dry yet, and this one, which is almost dry now. So it really depends on what you're going for. If you want a lot of texture, kind of like a napkin effect almost, with lots of texture on that, you know, you don't have to rehydrate it. Yeah, if you have a small enough piece with the small scales, you can get it pretty flat. And then this is one where I didn't dry it off first, so it really got the tag pretty wet. So those are just different ways. I really like that one. That turned out really cool. All right, so I'm gonna do some more of those off camera and come back. Okay, so I went ahead and inked up this tag. I just used some peeled paint, see, Broken China and Wild Honey, you know, and just put it on like we do, you know, the distress inks, just regular distress inks, not the oxides. Not that it matters. I think you could probably do it either way. And then I'm kind of rehydrating this little portion of the skin. And I'm just going to mop up the excess oil on that one side. And I'm going to add some matte medium. I don't want to overwork this because this matte medium will activate, because it's water-based, the ink that's on here. Okay. So you can see how that ink does come off a tiny bit. And then I'm gonna lift this up. I think I'll leave the water on the bottom. Okay, and I'm just gonna lay this right over the top. I really like the way this is turning out. This is really cool. And this is just, you know, like the same as if you'd, you know, it's translucent, so, you know, it's same as if you'd put it over a printable. You know, you're going to be able to see what's on the bottom of this. I'm going to cut that off so I can use it on something else before it dries like that. Yeah, let's just add a little ink directly to my mat. There we go. Add a little water. Yeah, I could just use this just like I would, you know, paper or anything else to kind of pick up that color there. Okay, just add a little bit of matte medium to this. Oh. Look how cool that looks. So remember, the ink is on the underside of this skin, so I'm not really picking up the ink and putting it on more of the card. I'm just kind of trying to flatten it out on the top. All right, this is rolling quite a bit, so try to flatten it out. The nice thing about the blue and the yellow, or blue and orange somewhat, is that they're not, that if you mix them together, they make green. So it's not like if they do, you know, blend together, they're not going to make mud. So this is kind of a good color combination for something like this. Okay, that actually is really pretty. That has a nice, really gorgeous translucent quality to it. I really love that. So you can kind of tell, you know, the difference between the two of these. You get this really beautiful look here, which is different than this really beautiful look here, which has the texture, but it's overlaid with that. The actual skin is colorized. Okay, so I have a number of different archival inks in various colors. I think I'm going to start off with this tree branch. I just kind of want to get a, you know, highlight some of these raised areas here. So I'm curious to see how that turns out. And this is a waterproof ink. So I'm just going to rub over the top of it. You can see that that really brings out the you know, that kind of raised portion, which looks super cool, I think. So now you kind of get more of that texture in there. And then I can choose to add more inks on top of this once it dries. Okay, so I have some more archival inks here in different colors, and I really like these offcuts from Digital Kits. They're just a great way to kind of test out, you know, your ink colors. Okay. That color doesn't look anything like that color. Yeah, that actually looks kind of cool. All right, I've kind of got this one which has some color in it, but not a lot. I think I'm just going to try this green because it's got quite a bit of green in it. Let me give a little heavier hand on this one. And this I'm going to add a number of different colors, I think. And now I want to just add a little bit of this Distress Oxide Vintage Photo like around the edges. So what I'm going to do, instead of like spraying it onto the tag, I'm just going to, and I know you're not supposed to do that, you're supposed to go like this, but I'm not doing that. So anyway, I'm just going to spray some onto my mat. And even before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of water to my mat, and I'm just going to go along the edges here, and that'll activate the ink that's there already on the tag, and it'll kind of make it already wet so that it's more likely, it'll just have a different effect when I absorb the ink. All right, so I'm just going to kind of, you know, go into the ink like this, and it's already oxiding because there's water on there. All right, so this is starting to look pretty cool. Look at that. I'm getting this kind of wicking effect where it's going underneath the snake skin. That is so cool, and I love that oxided look along the edges. I love that. That looks so cool. Sop up what I've got here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. All right, so now I'm just curious about inking over this snake skin. All right, I'm gonna try some cracked pistachio, some peacock feathers, and fossilized amber. I think those three will be really pretty together. I could leave it like that, or I could try just adding a little bit of water. Let's see what happens here. You can see where I put some of that matte medium over here. It's acting a little bit as a resist. So that's kind of interesting too. Sop that up. The extra water, see what happens. Well, that's kind of interesting. Look at that. So not a lot really stuck to that so much, but that's kind of interesting effect. Okay. I'm just gonna add more water. Why not? All right, I'm gonna let that dry and work on something else. Okay, so I'm curious to do the same thing, but this time with oxide inks. All right, so I'm just gonna start with the lightest color. It should be the hickory smoke. Wait. Okay. Oh, this is very light. And this one's not really sticking so well to this. The oxides don't seem to be sticking really, really well to the snake skin. Up. No, it looks actually like this, like the Distress ink looks more effective than the oxides. Like the oxides just kind of lay on top, but it looks like the inks, because they're a dye ink, actually dye the snakeskin a little bit. It's not like a super intense effect. Okay, so I really love the way this one's turning out. And I just want to do a little something more over the top of this. So I'm thinking, let's see, I used fossilized amber on here. So I could do the archival and fossilized amber. That might look kind of cool. I wonder if alcohol, rubbing alcohol will take color off of here. I'm just curious. Just curious. It does. Look at that. Ooh. That's cool. Look at that. Okay, so instead of getting like a green color, which is not kind of what I was going for, I could actually look at that. I discovered something. I could actually get more of a blue color there. Ooh, I really like that. I really, really like that. That looks really cool. All right. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm gonna leave that just like that. Right. Ooh, I love that. All right, I'm curious what this Distress Oxide spray, this orange one, would do. I'm going to kind of echo these colors that I used in here. Okay, I got a whole lot going on right in here. Got all the oxides, I got a lot of stuff going on. Make sure I get all that oxidized really well. And I just added a little bit of the Distress Oxide Vintage Photo down here. I did all the edges, you know, just sprayed the mat and dipped it in there, added some water. I did add a little bit of picked raspberry up here and a little bit of the wilted violet in a couple spots. And you can see this, you know, it comes off. I mean, it's not like, you know, this is, you know, it's like doing it over like a plastic, you know, it'll puddle and it'll get on there, but really it's the archivals that stick to the actual skin. It looks really cool. I really like the way it's looking, but you know, this is like not, you know, a permanent type of thing. So, you know, you'd have to use some kind of sealer if you wanted it to stay like that. I may work with this a little bit more, but I'm gonna put this off to the side for now because I'm gonna work on a couple other things hard here. And I'm thinking that alcohol inks are gonna work really well on this. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, it's not really plasticky, but it's kind of behaving that way in terms of the way the inks react. I mean, the dyes do seem to absorb slightly. The oxides don't seem to have a whole lot of effect. They just kind of sit on top. But I think the alcohol inks will work on here. So I'm gonna just kind of see what I can come up with. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the patina. Just add a few little drops. There we go, that's good. I'm gonna add some bottle. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that color. And then I'm gonna add some denim in here. Okay, not too much because I don't want that to overpower it. All right, I'm just gonna put the top on there like that. I'm gonna add a little bit of blending solution. Okay, and then I'm just gonna pounce. Okay, this is super light. Maybe I need more bottle. I think we need more bottle. Maybe even more patina. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, that's coming up darker. Okay, that's good. Okay. Can even add a little bit more denim. Look at that. That's looking pretty cool. Kind of like that. I'll do this one too. Let's just pounce some of these colors on here. Okay. Can even add Get some blending solution and just kind of blend it on in. Just kind of like that. Let's see what happens. Do you like that? I like that look too. I like them both. Okay, so these are more or less dry now, so I'm just gonna demonstrate that this, you know, this is now, it's alcohol ink. It's permanent on this. It's not gonna come off. So we've successfully colorized that skin. There you go, you can see it there. I think what I'd like to do is take some of this cobalt, I've got this cobalt blue. I think I'm gonna go over this skin with that, just because I think it would look really pretty. You see how that's now the pattern is popping on there. That looks so cool. There you go. So you have like this without, you know, an overlay, and this with the overlay. So you get a lot of texture even with something like this. It's just a little bit more subtle. And then this one, you know, you can really see, you know, the skin pattern. So that's really kind of cool. Okay, so I'm gonna add some of this on some watercolor paper as well. Okay, and then I'm gonna take, this is some deli paper, you know, wax paper would work as well. I'm gonna lay it over the top and put a book on top and see if that helps it stay flat. And honestly, that was a bit of a fail. The collage medium actually stuck to this really well. So a lot of the actual skin came off of this one. But the interesting thing is that I have like an impression now still on, I don't know if you can see, but I still have a bit of an impression where the collage medium was. So that's kind of an interesting effect. And then I have some deli paper that has skin attached to it, so I can play with that a little bit. And this did the same thing. So, you know, you can see where the skin is, and then you get this really kind of interesting impression from the skin where the collage medium was. And then all of that stuck, you know, to the deli paper. So, you know, it's all just a little bit of an experiment. I went ahead and glued some more to another sheet of watercolor paper, and this is a smooth watercolor paper. And then I put the sheet, the Tim Holtz silicone sheet on top of it, and that should not stick to the collage medium at all. So hopefully that'll work, because you can see that where it's stuck, it's really nice and flat. If you know, if that's important to you and you're going for that look. So I'm thinking I might try putting some sprays on here and seeing what happens. All right, so here is, as we're letting that kind of sit there. All right, here are the two other, so these are the two watercolor ones where I used the wax paper, or deli paper really, but it's waxed essentially, and you can see a lot of that skin came up. That's what we're, you know, playing with right here. And these are the watercolor papers that I used, the Tim Holtz. Oh, jeez, did I just get that in there? No, okay. Media Matte, you know, we all know this thing, right? Over the top of it, underneath the books. Yeah, underneath the books. Well, actually, this one is the one I used underneath the books with the media mat. And you can see, yeah, it's super duper flat, but it also doesn't have a whole lot of texture, raised texture anymore. So I'm not sure if that defeats the purpose or not. And it also has some of these, like you can see these silicone mats have like a grid, you know, and so that a little bit of that texture actually got on there as well. I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is super duper flat. Hardly any texture left on that. All right, this I just glued down to the media mat without putting anything on there, and that actually got pretty flat, but you still have a lot of the texture and the raised bits, which is kind of what I like. So I'm not sure I like putting it under the books, but I mean, you know, I mean, that's just so you can see what the option is. If you do want it super, you know, uber flat, use a media mat. That's the way to go with that one. Okay, so this has a lot of stuff on it. I think what I'm going to try to do is take one of these. I'll use this one because this is the one I care the least amount about. It doesn't have hardly anything left on it. Hardly any snakeskin, but I'm just gonna, it's watercolor paper, so I'm just gonna take it, put it right on top, let it absorb some of the inky goodness here. See how much it absorbed. Oh, it absorbed quite a bit. Now that looks pretty cool too. Look at that. Huh, that's pretty interesting. And these, remember, are a combination of distress inks and oxides. Okay. Can I get this here without messing up the rest of it? Get a little bit of that. I like that color. Yeah. Ooh, look at that. Nice. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna just put this off to the side to dry. All right, let's see if this did anything cool. Look at that. Now that's kind of interesting. Okay, so, you know, maybe you don't have a million colors of archival ink, but you might have StazOn. So, you know, let's see how that works. It should be the same type of thing as alcohol inks. It's a, you know, it's a solvent-based dye. So I have this whole thing is covered in this one's not super juicy. This is, and it's a light, very, very light color. So I think I'm going to nix that. That was dove gray. So that wasn't the best. Okay. But I've got this blue, which is midnight blue. It's just lovely. Look at that. Look at that. That's really pretty. Okay. So I thought it might be fun just to play with the re-inker, and this one's silver. Shake this thoroughly. I'm just going to add a little bit to a little felt pad here. Just add a little bit, some different spots. Well, that's kind of cool. So you can see that works as well. You kind of get a little bit of that shimmer from the alcohol, the StazOn. Okay. And, you know, again, when this dries, and it could take a minute to dry because, you know, this is solvent based, but this should not, yeah, looks kind of cool. Okay. Actually, I kind of like that color now. It's growing on me. Okay. All right, so I have that forest green and this midnight blue. I like these small ones just because it's easy to get, you know, have more control as to where you're putting it. All right, so the other thing I was thinking is that, you know how we get this sometimes on these bigger, you know, where the belly part of the skin, where it's kind of flatter. I thought it might be fun. We kind of get a buildup there, and I don't necessarily love the way that looks. So I thought it might be fun to just take, rather than wholesale remove the ink, just take a little bit of this hand sanitizer and use a little Q-tip. Just kind of go in here. And I can, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of like moving around, taking off some of the ink. Okay, so I just cleaned up, you know, in each of these a little bit more off camera. And I just thought it would be fun to maybe add a little bit of some of this in some of them. Let's see. This is, again, the metallic StazOn. Let's say you don't have any colored archival inks, you don't have any StazOn, you don't have any alcohol inks. Well, you could also use Copics. So I want the paintbrush one. So, you know, again, I could just, you know, color these. You know, you could do, if you're very careful, maybe, you know, go over some of those, but it's a little harder without a flat pad to, you know, get the texture going. But just to colorize it in general, you know, this is just another way to do that. This one's bronze. That's kind of a cool color. Let's check that out. How about that? Ooh, ooh, that's really pretty. I like that. I really like that. It's a nice dark color. Ooh, look at that, how pretty that is. That's very nice. So anyway, yeah, I mean, just, you know, you can do some fun things like that just to colorize it. Okay, and so the cool thing about this too is like, okay, I can, if I have a sheet like this, I can take my, you know, circle punch. Fine. I kind of like that one. So, yeah. So you can take and you can, so, you know, you can do die cuts with these really easily. And you can leave it like that, or you can add, you know, some other inks to it. There we go. Instead of just using more StazOn or, you know, basically a waterproof ink, I can use more of a water-soluble ink with this one. So, for example, I could use some, I think this Evergreen Bough, and maybe a little bit of cracked pistachio would look really pretty on this. Okay, so I added a little eyelet to this. Look how cute that looks. I just love that. And this other one, I decided to add a little bit of this Distress Oxide spray. And I put a little water in there. And look at what it did. How cool that is. It followed all the little lines around. All I did was go like around it like this. And look at what it did. Isn't that cool? I love it. I love the way it did that. That is so much fun. Like that. Look at how cool that turned out. Okay, so look at how cool this one turned out. You see all that texture in there? And this is the one that I had put under this deli paper, and most of the actual skin had come off on the deli paper. I put it on under a book to flatten it. But it's still got a lot of texture here just with the matte medium underneath. So that actually turned out really lovely. I kind of got a twofer on that one. And this is the piece, I believe, that was like that. So I just, this is the one that we added stuff to the back. I just wanted to see if it would, you know, come through. Pretty. Okay, so that, you know, that's interesting. It's kind of cool. So you can see that texture kind of popped a little bit, and I can use this, just tear it up and use it in collage and stuff. So that'll be kind of cool. Same with this one. This one I just, remember we had there was a combination of Distress and Oxides, and, you know, I had put it down on the paper, sprayed it, and kind of, you know, sopped it up. And you can see this stuff's really, the Oxides at least are laying on top. It's not, hasn't soaked into there. The dyes are a little bit better, I think, for the skins. And then I had gone over it with some archival inks in various colors. All right, and again, I can use this in collage. I can ink it up more if I want. So this one turned out pretty cool. This is one that I did not put under the book, so it was a lot more textured. But, you know, it still, on this paper, it turned out pretty flat, so I'm not sure you really need to put it under a book page. But there's definitely a difference. So you can see this is the one I put under the book, and I use the silicone matte, Tim Holtz silicone matte on top between the book and this, and you can see how flat that is. So there is definitely a difference when you put it under the book versus, so this one's under the book. You can see how flat that one is versus this one, which was not under the book. So this one had a lot more raised areas, and that definitely shows up. The texture is much bolder, I think, on this one. And I just went over it with the archival ink pads, various colors. I think I used, I don't know, a blue and a green and a yellow. So I really like that. That turned out super cool. And then this one, this is also where I applied the inks to the matte, to the silicone matte, and then I added water and I dabbed it up like that. And this just gives a much more subtle effect. I mean, you can definitely still see the texture. It's just a lot more subtle, but really, really pretty. And this is a combination of some oxides and just some regular Distress inks. Okay, so I am going to take, you know, I'm not going to do something with all of them. I might do a little bit of collage with one of these two just to give you an idea of how you can use them in a tag. And I think I'm going to cut one of these up and make a tag out of it just so you can see how that might look in a tag. Okay, and I'll be back. Okay, so check it out. I made this tag using the bottom part of this paper here, and this is the really flat one, remember. I did go over it with a little bit of brown archival over the top, just slightly. And then I added more of the same inks that I had previously. I added the Distress inks in Aged Mahogany and in Fossilized Amber. And then I added some Quiche Flamingo Oxide ink in here. Added some, is it vintage? I think it's the Vintage Photo Distress spray. And then just saturated it with water, let it sit for a while and kind of, you know, work its magic. I really love the way this turned out. I think it's super cute. You know, you can see the texture, and you know, you might want to add more things to this. I mean, we could add a little purse, a little Tim Holtz purse in there and stuff, or, you know, whatever else you want. But, you know, this just kind of gives you some kind of an interesting base, you know, with this skin. I think it turned out super cool. Okay, so that's one thing I did. Okay, so I wanted to show you also that I said I was going to use some of this in collage. I love the way this turned out. So I just did, you know, a little bit of collaging on, you know, just some, this is like a file folder, manila file folder. And look at how cool that turned out. I mean, I just collaged up some book page and some printables and, you know, some of this paper that I used to like daub up my ink on my media mat. And then I just, you know, this tore really easily, very nicely, and just used some glue stick to glue this to this. And I didn't add any more archival ink over the top or anything, but you can see what's really nice about this is that it's, you know, it's translucent. So you can kind of see what's underneath. You get a peekaboo effect, but you get this really cool texture. So I really like the way that turned out. I think that turned out really cool. And I really like this. I think this is going to make a really cool card once I add like a little person on there. One of Tim Holtz paper dolls or something. I think, you know, it's a great base for adding more stuff. So, and it had exactly the effect that I wanted, which, you know, I basically blacked out all of the rest of the tag, and you can see this is super translucent, transparent in here, and you can see where the original tag had text and stuff. And I think that just looks really, really cool. I really like that effect. This one has a pretty similar effect. I love these colors. I think this one I'm going to keep just the way it is. I really love the way this one turned out. Yeah, these colors were phenomenal. I really love it. And you can see I went over it more with the archival inks over this one, so it's not quite as transparent as this one, but you know, just really, really, really beautiful. I really love the way those turned out. Okay. If you remember, we did this one. I love the way this one turned out too. We started with an inked base, and I think I just used Distress inks on this one, and then I added the skin on top with Collage Medium, went over it with the archival brown, and then added some Distress oxide spray to the edges, added water, and look at that great oxidation along the sides. I just really love the way this one turned out. I think it's super grungy, super great. I just love it. Okay, so got those. Those are my grunge. we have this one, which is pretty cool. I mean, you know, this was a little different effect. I think we used the mica distress sprays on this one. And, you know, not quite as much inking. I didn't go over the, I went over, I guess, a little bit with some archival, maybe the blue, like a blue archival on this. You can see there's lots of texture in there. So yeah, that one turned out kind of cool too. So, this one, if you remember, we use a lot of different color archival inks on here. And then I sprayed up the sides with all sorts of different kinds of inks. And that turned out really cool. It's just a different, you know, a little different effect. It's very bright. I think this is one of my absolute favorites. This was just kind of a happy accident one, and I wanted to keep it super simple. I just simply took the skin and put it on some inks that had been on my craft mat that I had, you know, just dabbed the actual ink pad on there and then sprayed it with water, and then put the skin on there. And then I just added this to the card. So the ink's between the card and the skin, but the ink's actually on the skin itself. So I thought that turned out super cool. It's very subtle. You know, you can see the pattern if you look closely, but it's really pretty. I just really like that one. I think that one turned out super cool. So I'm super happy with that one. There is this one, which, if you remember, we added some different color archival on top of the skin. And then I went back and I added some distress inks along the edges and, you know, did the water magic. And you can see where the collage medium that I used served as a resist in some areas. So that's, you know, kind of a cool effect too. You know, you get, it makes for an interesting background. All right, getting down to the end here. This is just, I just wanted to show how this is transparent. The skin's transparent. And I just added this right over a printable. And then to kind of pick up that pattern, I just went over it with some purple archival. And I just think it's kind of interesting. This one speaks to me of renewal between the butterfly or moth or whatever it is and the snake skin. You know, this is, you know, shedding the old and rebirth of the new. So I just really, I think this is a very symbolic tag. I really like that. Okay. Here's some little ones that I did. This one, if you recall, I just glued it down, went over the top with some of the green archival ink, and then afterwards I added some, I think it was a combination of distress and oxides. So I thought that was really cool. You can tell I like yellows and turquoises, huh? Those are some of my favorites. All right. And then if you remember, these two we did alcohol inks with. And, you know, they're just... So this one I used a lot more alcohol inks with a lot more of the... I just added it a lot, made it a heavier application. And then I went over the top with some blue archival to kind of make the design pop. It's not focusing. There we go. There we go. All right. And then this one, I did not go back over the top of it with any archival. And I had just gone over the skin much more lightly with the alcohol inks. I think it turned out pretty cool too. Those are just two different effects. And then if you remember with these little tags that we made, I had used some Copic markers on there. And I really like this one. I added some distress spray. It was an oxide distress spray around the edge, and I really like the way it kind of went between the grooves and stuff, and really picked up the pattern in there. So that turned out super cool. I really like that one. And then this one, I just simply ran around the edges with a dark blue archival ink, and didn't add any oxides or any other things like that. So really, and just add a little eyelet. So just a lot of fun and a lot of different ways to show how these skins can be used. I mean, if you have a neighbor who has a snake that's shedding, you might want to just play around with it, experiment. You know, this isn't something I'd use all the time, but it is kind of fun to kind of mix it up and try some different stuff and see what kinds of textures and layers you can get. So in the process of experimenting with these snake skins, I learned a few things. First of all, I learned that it really helps to hydrate the skin a little bit before adhering it to your substrate to get the best results. Also, you want to dab off the excess water before applying it so that you don't warp your paper. Second of all, in regard to inks, for best results, you want to use a solvent or alcohol-based inks like archival inks, StazOn, alcohol inks, Copics, or Sharpies. Dye inks work but have a more subtle effect. Pigment and hybrid inks, like oxides, lay color on the top and are really cool looking, but they're not absorbed. They need to be sealed so they don't rub off. Also, lightly rubbing archival ink pads or StazOn ink pads over the skins really helps make the texture pop, and it looks really cool. And if you add too much or the wrong color archival ink accidentally, you can remove it with hand sanitizer for a fresh start. Alright, so I hope these tips were helpful for you. And if you are afraid of snakes, in advance, I want to apologize for this video. I am not afraid of them. I'm not a huge snake lover, but I appreciate experimenting with all sorts of different kinds of mediums. So I just thought it would be fun to see, what could be done with this. So anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. I genuinely hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Have you ever played with snake skins before? Or, what's the weirdest thing you've ever used in your artwork? And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please subscribe to my channel. Again, this is Denise with Paper Crafty, and craft on.